You're listening to Paris Undressed on Paris Underground Radio.
Welcome to Paris Undressed. I'm Kate Kemp-Griffin, your host and the author of Paris Undressed, The Secrets of French Lingerie. Every week, we go behind the seams of the lingerie capital of the world to explore femininity and sensuality. And if you listen carefully, tuning into both the conversation and the whispers of your body, you'll find joy, beauty, and delight. My guest today is Mathilde Alloin, founder of Skinswear, a lingerie brand that asks the question, what do you embody? Committed to connecting ideas and people, Mathilde draws her inspiration from nature and the wonder of its interactions. From sourcing eco-friendly fabrics and materials to integrating 3D printed wires, Skinswear is redefining how women wear lingerie. Mathilde, welcome to the Paris Undressed podcast. I'm delighted to have you as my guest today.
Thank you very much, Kate. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Yes, as our listeners will find out, we've known each other for quite a while, and it's just an incredible privilege to be able to follow the journey of your creative and design process. So I'm extremely happy to be able to share this process with the listeners. So you are a lingerie designer, but before that, you were a young girl. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how you ended up in Paris?
Yes, I was born in Brittany. My dad was a commando, a military. So because of that, we moved to Africa for a few years. When I was very young. I was 2-3 years old. We stayed there for 2 years, and then we went back to Brittany. And I was there until I was 8. Then we moved to Paris, where I've been since then. And I've spent my teenage years in Paris.
And when you were a young girl in Brittany, were you already creative? Or did you recognize either some sewing or some painting? Or what was it like growing up in the country for you?
It was a lot of fun because we always had gardens. Could be super small gardens or bigger ones, but we always had this daily contact with nature, which was, I realize now, and having spoken with people growing up in cities, that I've been really lucky for that. We always had animals, pets, and we were playing with insects in the garden, And I think that was, in a way, creative moments, because we were always imagining so many games with nature, playing with nature. Apart from that, I was drawing and like most children, but I was never very connected with anything related to arts or creation, because my parents and their parents before were never in those fields. I am from a family of doctors or factory workers, so it was never really around me and my brother and sisters. So I was never really. I never really realized as a child that it was a possibility, that it was something I could be exploring. It really came late.
Mm. And as a young girl, do you remember what your relationship was like with your body as your body changed? And do you remember your first bra?
I remember I was not scared about it. I remember feeling my breast hurting when they started to grow, and I was bothered by the pain. But I remember I was talking about it with my best friend, and we were discussing it. But I wasn't very. It didn't grow very big very fast, so it was never an issue in that sense that I felt different from my friends and the girls around me. So it was pretty normal and easy process. I remember the first bras that I got was a brassiere. I think it was something like Hello Kitty brassiere. I remember I think it was pink, and my sister had it blue, because I have a sister. She's a year and a half older than me, but we were always together, spending all of our time together. We're always sleeping in the same room. And I think we had our first bras together too. So I wasn't very scared, because I was very surrounded with my sister, my mom, my friends. It wasn't a trauma or a shock for me at all.
Do you remember a sense of pride or just a step that was happening in your adolescence?
I think I was very happy to have access to a new kind of clothing piece that was belonging to the woman world. And yes, in that sense, I was happy to belong there now. I was proud, I think. I remember being proud more than being ashamed.
And Hello Kitty, you mentioned, and for our listeners who might not know that, it's an illustration, correct? It's a cartoon. It was a brand?
Yes.
Can you describe Hello Kitty?
It is, in my memory, it was a cartoon that was very successful. It was a little, I think it was Japanese, a little kitten, and it was a lot of associated with a lot of pink colors, and there was a lot of merchandising around it. Bags, I remember having handbags, the first handbags, cotton handbags that you would carry, but it would be your first handbag, and they also had those brassières, and I think they probably did a lot of products for young girls, as it was the target, because it was those girls who knew about this cartoon. And in a way, it was very reassuring to have this young girl's word connecting with the one of lingerie. I think it was very reassuring at this age to feel like, okay, I am jumping into something new, but I carry with me something that is in my word, something that I know already, that is...
And youthful.
Yes.
Yeah, something youthful and young and age appropriate in color and in style. Yeah. But from there, what I find interesting in your background is always these balances of opposites. You talk about a strict Catholic high school upbringing and then a very creative time afterwards at Esmode. Can you tell us a little bit about what Esmode is in particular, and just how did you make that decision how did you know even a desire to go from something strict? And you're a good student, so you went from something strict to something where there's rules, but a whole different kind of creativity.
Yes. Esmode is a fashion school. It's one of the oldest fashion schools in the world. It is in Paris. They have other around the world, but the main one is in Paris. So I was in as you said, quite strict schools. I was a very brilliant pupil. I had great grades in Latin. I was very disciplined, and I changed one day from a private school, Catholic, to a public school in the same area in the 6th arrondissement in Paris. And it was like my world was opening. All of a sudden I realized I saw teenagers not doing anything, not caring about authority, and caring about how they're dressed and just being cool and who's the cool guy, and not being obsessed with result and grades. And I was completely lost. I thought, okay, what is happening? Is that part of the world too? And I think it allowed me to open doors that were closed inside me. So, for instance, I would never have thought of, this creativity, this interest you have for clothing, etc. I would never have thought that it was a possible way for my life path. It was there, but it was like, okay, it's there, but it's not something to share. It's not something to talk about. And all of a sudden, I reconsidered everything, because I realized that, people were having fun and not being just obsessed with the grades and authority. And I arrived at the baccalaureate, which is the diploma you get after high school. And after that, you have to choose what studies you want to do. And most of my friends were either choosing law schools or business schools. And I was really not thrilled by either of them. I thought it was lacking originality, and I just thought, this is not where I want to go. I want to try something different first. And I had the luck to be, I'm the younger of my family, the youngest of the children of my family. So I had less pressure on my shoulders. My sister is a lawyer. My other sister has done scientific studies. So I felt like I'm already the one that, is not so, they didn't have so much expectations with me. my parents. So I thought, okay, let's give it a try. Maybe, I feel like I can try something different. And I was interested in fashion. So I just tried to join this school. It was quite great because I didn't have any portfolio. I never had been drawing in my life, but they still would allow young people who haven't been in the art before to join the school. So I joined, and I realized that I had 2 years of more complete study of fashion. It was the same exercises for everybody, and you had basically outerwear, dresses, skirts, shirts, and it was really not for me at all. I was really bad at it. The patterns were too big. I didn't understand. Honestly, it wasn't for me at all. And I was thinking, okay, I do like fashion, but I just don't know how to deal with clothes. It's not just something. I don't understand how they're constructed. I don't understand what it was just not for me. So I thought it was a fail. And then I had to choose to specialize in something in the last year. And my teacher told me, because I was drawing something a bit see-through or very focusing on the breast and how do you call it, like the lower body,
the silhouette or the body.
Exactly. So my teacher told me, look, I think you should try lingerie. So I did, which was a moment of I think fear from my parents, who thought, okay, so now fashion is not enough for her. She needs to go in lingerie. So I really became I remember I was doing a lot of shopping with my mom every week, and she loved to dress me up. It really went from one day to another, from being dressed by my mom as a little girl to being the one who was going to dress women in their nudity. I was becoming a woman in a very symbolic way. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
And that's where we met. I met Mathilde when she was a student in her lingerie year, and Esmod does that. It's a fashion training school, and then you have to select a specialty, and that specialty was lingerie. And our paths crossed then. And she was an excellent student, even from your senior project. It's interesting now to see your collections in relation to that and how the vision was already there. And like you say, and we'll talk about this some more too, your connection to nature and the connection to the body and this way of expressing clothes on body. But I can understand why your parents might have been a bit nervous, because I know as a consumer, lingerie was just something I never gave it much. Somebody makes that? Is that a bit? I didn't know it was even a job. It's like they were just things you buy, yes. But I didn't really think about what goes on to get what's behind the scenes for all of that to happen. So you talk about Esmod as being sort of this moment where, the psychology, the body, intimacy, were all kind of coming together. Mm-hmm. Is there, apart from the lessons that you learned at Esmod, what do you carry with you today? Do you remember a particular lesson that stays and still resonates with you?
To be honest, I remember a teacher. I remember to have met a teacher who was just supportive, and she was so gentle, and she was allowing me to express myself. I felt I was I remember I started to draw some things, and I was never thinking in terms of product. That's why I think I found myself in lingerie, and I was completely lost in clothing, because when it was just lingerie, I could just draw on the bodies. And from then I was drawing things in the end. I was thinking, oh, it has to be a bra. And my teacher told me, it's very interesting because you're drawing shapes that I've never seen in lingerie before, because you don't think about the product. You just do your drawings on the woman's body, and then you turn it into a product. And I think that to have met this teacher, Isabelle, who I connected with so much and who was allowing me to express that without any judgment, without any trying to make me fit in anything, that's what really allowed me to move on. And it was the first step to my confidence in this process, I think.
If you're enjoying this episode of Paris Undressed, you may also be interested in romancing in Paris with host Lily Heisey as she reveals the most captivating romantic places in Paris. Tune into this dreamy and sometimes steamy podcast. Paris Undressed will be right back after a word from our sponsors. And now, back to Paris Undressed. She saw the vision developing and was able to guide you towards it instead of closing doors and saying, go this way instead.
Yes.
That's not allowed. We don't do it that way.
Exactly. And to be honest, I haven't met so many people like that after, because it's an industry where everything is regulated and you have a way of doing, the pattern makers, for example, are very experts and they take years or if not decades to learn how to perfectly make the products. And I've struggled so much with pattern makers. I've met many of them, and each time it was really complicated to make them understand that I wanted to create the product differently, because I could see either they would be saying it or not, but in their eyes, they were really feeling like this is not the way you do it. Period. And this teacher, she was the contrary. She didn't care at all. And she was a lingerie teacher. She's always seen that. But she was just telling me like, oh, it's interesting. You do things that I've never seen because you do it this way, but not judging, not trying to tell you this is wrong, just letting you do. And that was very nice, because there was an openness in that speech that helped me a lot. Yes.
I love it. What's the most challenging part to get right when designing lingerie?
To get right, I think that it really depends on what type of products you are willing to create. If you are focused on the comfort, if you are focused on the aesthetics, in my case, I think it would be a mix of both, because I really start to have crazy ideas in terms of design. And then I think, okay, now what would I be happy to wear? What would I wear every day? And not just it looks awesome, but actually I'm never going to wear it. So that's the tricky point for me. The moment where I think in terms of technicity, like, okay, this is beautiful, but what is the fabric that is actually going to fit not just for this A cup girl, but also for this E, F cup woman, That's the tricky point, because it's there's so much technicity and differences in the breast and in the variety of breast, that you have to remember that your purpose should be to address as many women as possible. And we've been focusing on small breast. And even as a student, you learn how to draw on very thin silhouettes, and you learn how to design things. The prototypes are always B cup. So I think for a young person who starts in this industry, the challenge is to think, okay, I have been taught and told that I'm addressing maximum C cup women, but this is not the truth. The truth is the women out there, they are not just small breasts, some have way bigger breasts, and I'm supposed to address them as well. I'm supposed to see beyond what have been shown. I think that's the challenge. So in terms of technicity, to find the good materials, to find the good elastic bands, to find all the things that are really useful and effective on the product.
Ethics is very important to you, as well as the aesthetic, which brings us to Skinswear, your new brand. Can you tell us about Skinswear?
Yes. Skinswear was born just before the lockdown, just before COVID. It was born, but it was just born in my mind, and I started to work on it. But then this shock made it change a lot in the very beginning. My purpose with Skinswear was to create a lingerie that is both aesthetic, beautiful, but also comfortable, by using 3D technologies for creating an innovation more generally to create more fitted products, but that also look good. And when I found myself under lockdown, I was completely lost, because I was about to give birth to this brand, and then I thought, what on earth am I going to... Why on earth would I launch a new brand? Why would I make products for people to consume? the world is going in such a wrong direction, and the environment is terrible, and what am I going to do? This is wrong. So I had a long time thinking about that. And I realized one thing. It's that I really believe that the power now lies in business, in consumption, in money. We are in a capitalistic society for now. This is the way it works now. We all would like ideally to change it, but this is not changing tomorrow. And this is where the changes are possible too. I realized that if the way we were consuming would change into something with a positive impact, we could really change our visions and the world. So I looked around at the brands that I thought were my competitors, and I realized that none of them was an ethical brand, a brand with a positive impact. So I decided this is what I wanted to become with this brand. So it was a long, complicated work with no money, alone during COVID. And I just looked into each part of this brand, each aspect of it. And I decided, okay, now if I'm doing it, I'm only doing it in a like idealistic way, because we can only be idealistic. Otherwise, I'm not even launching it. You know, there are plenty of brands that are not doing the job well out there. So I have to do it as best as I can. So I decided to produce locally. I reached out to a woman who made the first production in Provence. Now we're switching to a bigger atelier in France too, but she's been amazing, and we were working together slowly, but in a very friendly way, human way. This was great. I found a network of reinsertion centers, so women who were victims of domestic violences who are reinserted through sewing and gardening. In my case, I was interested in the sewing part. They make the packaging for the brand. I've met them several times too. It was amazing. And when I met them, they told me, Mathilde, thank you for making us work. Thank you for making us live. And that's the moment all my doubts that I had left about making products and production and selling products completely disappeared, because I understood that I had a tool in my hands. And the more I was making to make it grow, the more I could have an impact.
Well, listen, you've said a lot in there, and there's so many important parts. So I want to make sure we our listeners understand. So we're going to talk about 3D, because you just skipped over that like just, it's a nothing thing. Well, 3D printing in bras is not nothing. The reintegration program that you run with the women, I don't want to skip over either. But all of that to say is, in the making of it, can you tell us sort of the 3D is an enormous element to this, and this is a technology that you have spent years developing. What does 3D have to do with lingerie, and why is it important?
Okay, so if you think of the way lingerie was built, it's from the corset. I'm not sure about the English word for that.
Corset?
Yes, corset. It was built to structure the body, to make it look in a way. And and the bras that exist now with the underwires are very similar to this, because if you take the way they're made, if you take a wire by itself, it's flat, it's round, it doesn't turn, it's really flat, and it's usually made out of metal. If you put it against a breast, it's really painful. It doesn't look like the shape of the breast at all. And you probably have seen many women pulling their bras. You see it's bothering. It doesn't fit really, but we're still wearing them, mainly because it makes the breast look more sexy in the terms of what we've been shown and explained. And the idea is, when I was in S-Mod, I remember that I took the pill for the first time. I had a boyfriend. I took the pill, and my breasts changed a lot. And I just realized how much the difference between the reality of what breasts are and what we are shown. There was a big difference, So the 3D is allowing to make something that is really unique for you. So let me explain it. I have met hundreds and hundreds of women. I have 3D scanned them. The 3D scan allows to get not just the size, but really all informations about the bust. So you have the shape of the breast, you have the length between the breast, the length of the back, you have all informations, and we are all very unique. And I also, apart from this 3D information, I was talking with those women for sometimes 30, 40 minutes, sometimes an hour or more. And I realized how interconnected it was with their intimacy, with their sexual lives, with their teenage years, with all of that, which was the reason why I was studying lingerie in the beginning, because it was not just a piece of clothing, as I was saying, but it was something that is against the body. So it's both the last protection before the body, but it's also the first protection before the word. It's something that protects you from the outside, but it's also something that's the first thing you show after your body. So it's very ambiguous, but I find it fascinating, honestly. And I gathered so much human data by speaking with this woman. I understood that there was a real disconnection between the way the products were sold and made and the reality of the woman's experiences. So from these 3D scans, I built with a friend who is an engineer an algorithm. This algorithm enables to generate from each scan a product that is tailored, is made on your body. For now, I focused on the underwires, and I use 3D printing to produce them. So the wires are 3D printed, and they are in a very strong material, very flexible too, but in a material that you can keep almost forever and reuse them in your different bras from Skinswear. And the idea is to really keep innovating, because thanks to these data, we can find many more changes within the product. It's complicated, it's a process, but the idea is to really get towards more and more and more comfortable and tailored products with keeping the aesthetics of it.
Yeah, I was one of those lucky women to be scanned by Mathilde when she was first developing the 3D printing. And we discussed quite often just this universal connection with women in our individual stories. But when we had to sort of present ourselves nude to somebody, there was a universal thread that just resonated through all of us. And we've both been really curious about that. And you've tried, and you're succeeding at being able to implement that in an industry where we have really been sort of forced to fit what the industry tells us, as opposed to you're sort of bringing back, couture dressmaking with modern technology. And the bras that are available through Skinswear are handmade in France, and with these 3D wires, and you can use the wire or you can remove the wire for different occasions. And I found that really fascinating too. So how do and each bra, you don't keep a stock of bras, which I think is probably part of your sustainability ethos, as well as just making sure that the bras are made for each body. Back to this reinsertion integration program, the women that you met or meet to sew, do they actually, you have to train them in sewing too? This is a high level expertise to be able to sew bras.
No, exactly. So as I was starting to tell you, the women from these centers, they are not sewing the bras or the lingerie. They are sewing packaging bags made from upcycled.
Oh, the packaging. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So it's little bags made from upcycled materials, and they do only that. The lingerie itself, it's we are at the moment deciding on which atelier we're going to work with. It's in France too, but it's made from professional pattern makers.
If you're enjoying this episode of Paris Undressed, you may also be interested in Navigating the French, hosted by Emily Monaco, who engages in a lively conversation with an expert about a French word and its cultural and linguistic meaning to provide keen insights into understanding the French. Tune into this exciting podcast that goes beyond language. Paris Undressed will be right back after a word from our sponsors. And now, back to Paris Undressed. Back to the word skinswear itself. And when you visit your site, what I was almost first struck was this simple sentence that you had. What do you embody?
Yes.
And I thought it was such an easy sentence to read. And then I found myself full of questions and reflection and what do I embody? So I wanted to know, what do you embody?
I think that this question was made to question, as you just said. I didn't want to tell something to women, to people. I wanted them to reflect on themselves. And I think that we are in a moment in time in where everything is changing. Everything is either completely depressing or full of hope, depending on how you see it. But there is this question of what did we do? What the hell have we been doing? With everything, with the way we treat human beings, the way we treat Earth, the way we there is so many the way we treat women too. So many things popping up, and just a realization of how much we've messed up. And what do you embody was for me a way for people to understand that it's not a judgment, but it means we are here for you to question yourself and maybe to help you embody something more, which also was important for me, because the way we have been talking about lingerie and the woman body was always focused on the body. And, there is this body positivity movement, which is great, which helped so much because we accepted more diversity. The brands have been showing more diversity, but women always reduce themselves to their bodies. So it can be, it's okay to be fat, it's okay to get old, it's okay to, or sometimes you hear, no, but all women are beautiful. But why do we want to be beautiful, If I think of Frida Kahlo, if I think of Greta Thunberg, if I think of any of those women, I don't care that they're beautiful. They embody something. They take action and they live through their passion, or they're being militant for something. But in any cases, you don't stop just at the way they look. And this is so rare. And my goal with this question was to have women for a moment, for just 1 second reading it, thinking, okay, what beyond my body? What is inside there, So what can I let out? So in my case, what do I embody? It's hard to answer because it's a constant question, but I try to embody kindness and curiosity and self-reflection, to never think that you have all the answers and that you know. And by the way, I'm constantly rethinking my company or me, and I'm always able to think, okay, I've been doing wrong. It's okay. How can I do best?
Well, I think when you were saying that, I was realizing, what do I embody is an invitation, yet at the same time, a call to action. Before you put something on, have you given it enough thought? Have you, as the consumer, really thought about this? So yes, what do you embody, and what does that mean for you? And it's an invitation and a platform and a space to talk about that and to question. But really also at the same time, it adds gravitas to what we might just be flippantly buying. And then the other thing that came to mind when you were saying that was, so many women I speak to talk about lingerie and underwear as something that they settle for. They just buy it because it was on sale. They buy it because it's rarely a purchase on any given day that is just because they feel good about themselves and that's just how they identify. There's usually an excuse or a reason that goes with it. And what do I embody asks me, well, why would I settle for anything less than what my values are? So it actually ups the game as well. So I thought it just resonated with me. And it was a big sentence with so much to unpack in there and to think about, that I thought it was a very interesting sentence to have linked to a lingerie brand.
But I'm very happy that you thought that. And it's also the idea of, I believe that, as I was telling you, buying the way we consume is the only way we have to do politics today. This is our vote. What you buy is your vote. And by the way, young people are not interested into politics anymore because they know they can't change anything, because it's all a system that is completely controlled by money. And what we buy is what we decide the world to be after. And I think that when I was launching the brand, I was asking around to women how much would you be able to pay for example, this bodysuit with the 3D wires made in France, blah blah blah, and I got answers like 20 euros. And I thought, okay, I should not even start it because there is no market for it. But what is shocking is we arrive to the point that we think that it's normal to buy a product for 10, 20, 30 euros. And we don't see the problem in that when our grandparents, great-grandparents, they would buy a product way more expensive. They would buy less, but the value was way higher. And we arrive to a point of overconsumption or bad production means, etc., that young people find it normal to pay such a price for an item, and they find it abnormal to pay for something for 100 euros or more. And I think that I refused to try to lower the prices if it meant lowering quality and where it was made and how it was made and all of that. So I decided that it would either work this way or not. And I think asking what do you embody is a way of asking the customer, you're about to get something that has a value and that embodies something too. It comes with something. It's not just something cheap you buy. It's something that means a lot of things and that had a process too for existing.
Mm-hmm. And you're standing behind that exigence in your own work as this brand grows. There'll, as you say, there's always going to be different decisions to make, but to be asking the decision each time, is this the direction where I want to take this brand? So your brand, Skinswear, your first collection was inspired by wet hair.
Yes.
I love that too. So I don't know, were you just in the shower one day and just said, this is the inspiration for my next lingerie collection? Tell us about wet hair and your first collection.
Yes, completely. I can't imagine to draw a product or a collection from sitting down and thinking, okay, now I'm going to draw a bra. It's not a process that fits with me at all. It doesn't inspire me at all. I have to find it on the body or in nature or in a relationship between both. So in that case, the first collection, I had very, very long hair by then. I was in my bath and I remember seeing the shape that my wet hair was drawing on my body, and I absolutely loved it and I found it so pretty. So I started to record myself. I did a little short movie I was playing with the shapes of my hair. And then I thought, okay, this is it. So I did another shoot with only naked woman with long hair. And from this shoot, I kept a few pictures, maybe 20 pictures. I looked at them again and again. And then I thought, okay, this is the one. And some of them I selected. And from those shapes, I drew the line of the lingerie. And then, of course, I made it become products.
Fascinating. This is also going to bring us to another new word that I learned in researching your brand. But before we get to that word, I want to talk about transparency. Transparency is also very important to you, but not in a hide and peek kind of way, but more as a way to add layers of nuance and intimacy. Can you tell us more about why transparency is an important element for you and how you integrate transparency in your collections?
Yes, transparency is very important because I don't like the way we have been making the woman body evolve in our society. We have, I think, completely disconnected the women with their bodies. So we lost the cultures of nudity. We don't have hammams. We don't have some cultures that still have this, so they can still see other women's body. They can still have moments where they're completely naked with other women from different ages. We lost that completely, which means that a teenager, a young girl who grows up, and she grows up completely alone with her nudity, completely alone with her body. And the only way she has seen something similar to nudity is lingerie ads, which usually are completely sexualizing the body. So we have sexualized it, and we associate nudity with that, the way we associate love with or sex with porn. And it's really important for me to show that lingerie that can be transparent doesn't mean it's sexualizing. So, for example, for the launch of the brand, we had a performance with two artists, and they were wearing transparent lingerie, and they were performing. And at any point, there was never a notion of sexualization. It was very casual. It was completely casual, and they were almost naked because we were not trying to sexualize them, and they didn't feel sexualized either. They were feeling comfortable within their own skin and safe. So it's very important for me to show in the beginning that I remember the first comments I had from creating transparent lingerie. A lot of people were telling me, oh, it's very sexy, which I understood that they associated with that because this is all we'd seen before. Brands creating sexy environments with transparency. But in my mind, it was not. And I insisted on that, creating photo shoots with all types of bodies and barefoot woman, no makeup, no jewelry, but still transparency, because I think you don't have to be wearing ugly, very thick lingerie to feel not sexualized. I think that you should be able to still show your body, but not feel sexualized. You know, this is where I would like to get.
Mathilde, as you're talking, let me see if I can get my words together. But when you were talking about the transparency and the sexualization, I was thinking about the lens of a man undressing you as the way that transparency is used. And when I look at your collection, it's almost as if the transparency is coming from within the woman and she's revealing what she wants to show, as opposed to this other regard taking away pieces of you. It's more embodied, it's more empowered, and it feels as if it's her choice to reveal, as opposed to a set of instructions, or a set of sort of invisible rules. Yeah, interesting. The word that I learned today in an entire process, and I hope I say it the right way, is biomimicry. Am I saying that the right way?
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was. It's absolutely fascinating and is an integral part of your process. So please tell us about biomimicry.
Okay. Biomimicry is a very, very old process that comes back now more because we get more interested in nature. That for a while we killed in a way. With the scientific revolution, we completely detached ourselves from nature and also from the woman's nature and, witchcraft and all of this. We really came back to very scientific facts. But biomimicry is the process of finding inspiration within nature. So I say as a joke that, other designers, because I've been copied when I did my first collection, I was copied by a few brands. And I like to say other designers, they copy other brands. But for me, I just copy nature because everything is in nature and it's way easier and it's endless. So it's a process that many, many, many people have been using. For example, you have, the Japanese trains that were inspired by a bird, very fast bird. They took the shape of this bird and they got inspired in that and built something with similar parameters. Also, Leonardo da Vinci, the first time he was looking at birds and he thought about airplanes. He did the first, of course it wasn't working, but he built the first test for an airplane. He's just looking around in nature and thinking, okay, this is a skill that we don't have, but that we can get inspired by to create something as effective as this plant, animal, or whatsoever. So I really find a lot of inspiration within nature, or geology, or animals, or also the woman's body, our own nature. And I really like to look at it. I love to, when I design the with the collections, I watch documentaries, a lot of science documentaries, but also social. I like to find analogies between us and our bodies and all the things around. So, for example, the last thing I had in my mind that I think I'm going to explore is the way the muscles are shaped in the bodies that make me think about some rocks. So I'm trying to dig into geology and to find connections. It's what I have the most fun in the brand. You know, it's really to try to find this fun, interesting processes.
If you're enjoying this episode of Paris Undressed, you may also be interested in the Transplant Kitchen, hosted by the dynamic chef duo Alana McPherson-Tavale and Omid Tavale, as they share recipes, stories, and tips on how to make the capital of gastronomy feel a little bit more like home. Tune into this delicious podcast. Paris Undressed will be right back after a word from our sponsors. And now, back to Paris Undressed. And fabrics and materials are also extremely important to you. And you include a lot of information on your website about your production process for the consumer to better understand. And as consumers, we hear a lot about recycled materials. Can you tell us more about what it means in lingerie, the idea of, something like recycled polyester or recycled polyamide? What does that mean? And why or how can you cultivate a better production process?
Yes, I'm going to be completely honest and transparent on that. When I started the brand, I was really willing to go for sustainable fabrics. So I looked what was possible and what was around, and I found some suppliers who were offering recycled materials. So I went for that right away. And I developed some fabrics for the brand. Only recycled, not natural, because you need to have plastic for making stretch fabrics, and in lingerie you need to have stretch. And I went to the last interfilière or fabric fair for lingerie, and I met with many suppliers, and I had a lot of chats with them, together with Virginie, who is the product developer of the brand. And I was very surprised because some of them that were existing for a very long time, they told me, look, those recycled material that you buy and that you offer, honestly, it's marketing. Because to have recycled material, it has to be post-consumer, which means that it has to be already worn. But when a supplier sells you a recycled material, it hasn't been worn. It's just a material that they didn't throw away, maybe from a production before, and that they use. But it's not actually that recycled. And so I wondered a lot, and I thought, okay, but what can I do to really be as sustainable as possible then, if this is just a lie? And I had all the conversation, and all the guys, they told me, look, the best way you have to be sustainable, honestly, it's to have a quality product. It's to have something that is going to last. And I mean, this is not breaking news. This is what our elders were doing, just producing quality, obviously. So I really decided, I'm rethinking all of that. And from now on, I've decided to focus on the quality, to make the products as qualitative as possible in any ways, and also to go with a high quality fabric. Of course, if I can find natural ones, it's best. But this is not something decisive for me anymore. I really prioritize quality over marketing.
And it is something about the way we buy. The consumerism and my own purchasing, I've realized, yes, there is room for a slightly higher budget. It doesn't necessarily have to go to extraordinary, but if I do buy less, guess what? I can afford more. It doesn't, takes a while for it to sort of just register and sink in, because our habits are just so entrenched. I see something, I buy something. I want something, I go get it. And I tend to buy things in twos, whether it's shoes or, something else. So it's just it's breaking habits. And until you catch yourself in the habit, it's, so I think what's happening is just this big awakening for, I'm certainly wasn't the fastest one to come to changing habits, but it's happening. It has done its job.
Yeah, I hope, but I think that, if you go to any fast fashion brand, and you're never going to buy one piece. You go there and you get
Yeah.
a lot of things because they're cheap, but you
Hmm.
always get for, I don't know, a few hundreds of euros of clothing, and they're very bad quality, so they're not going to last long, and sometimes you're not even going to wear it. You just feel happy to buy something so cheap, and you feel like you have variety. But you could go to, I don't know, you could go to a Prada shop instead and get you a pair of shoes, for that price. It's crazy when you think about it. People feel like they don't have access, like, oh no, it's too expensive. I don't have access to it. But this is just a mindset. This is just a way of thinking. How much are you going to spend at Zara next weekend? The same amount of money, you could buy yourself a beautiful, high quality dress.
Or nothing at all. So that the choice comes in, and it's no longer just this reflex. And I have found myself just now not even walking in, because it's like, I don't need to. And I don't necessarily want to, and I don't necessarily trust myself. Sort of all three things at the same time. But that realization wasn't there before, and now it is. And once it's kicked in, it's like, yeah, and then what happens? Well, then the consumer has all the choice, and then the power, and then the industry changes. Mathilde, you're a lingerie designer, but what's in your lingerie drawer?
I have, honestly, I wear, I only wear Skinswear pieces. This is not to be lying or anything. I have a bodysuit on me at the moment. Or I also wear a sports bra, sorry, brassiere, when I feel my breasts are sensitive. For example, when I'm on my period, I really need it to not move at all. Sometimes I don't wear a bra, but otherwise, before that, I was wearing a mix of cotton things, and I stopped wearing bras because they were hurting me too much. I was never wearing them again. Now I started to wear them again because I find them very comfortable, and I'm happy and proud to wear Skinswear. So yeah, it's a big mix of mostly Skinswear and then some sports brassiere.
Okay. And where are you on this dépareillé or non-dépareillé scale of being of matched or mismatched?
Matched
You're
more.
matched. Okay.
Yes.
Is that an aesthetic, or does it feel like a rule, or is just the way you do it?
Well, the thing is, I either wear just panties, and then it's not really a question. But if I wear a set, I like to, I like it to look to be completing each other. Yes.
And what has making lingerie taught you about your own femininity and sensuality and embodiment?
Wow, so much, and it's not finished. It's so many questions that, I mean, I've just all the things with we just discussed about, which is many, many, many things that I started questioning, and I realized the importance of our relationship to our femininity. I realized that there was such a wound in women, and I think that it taught me that, but about myself, it taught me to also, it was a way for me to heal, I think, from my own
Mhm.
relationship to my body and my relationship to my sexuality, because I had issues with my body too. And I had eating disorders. I wasn't taking care of my body so much. And now that I stand for women through this, I stand for myself too.
Beautiful. And what advice would you give someone who's just unsure of where to start buying lingerie, for somebody who's not necessarily so comfortable in their skin yet, and lingerie feels like it's something just not accessible? How does she start?
Hmm. I think she should start thinking about what she would feel herself in. So not trying to look for something trendy, not trying to look for something that she sees around that you have to wear, but she should try to just get something that feels like her or him, and to try to have something that it's so intimate. It has to be, you have to be true to yourself. I think if you want to go for extreme comfort and you don't care about the way it looks, go for it. If you want to have something that reshapes your breast so you look very, very sexy, go for it too. I think that you have to really trust yourself and go for what you want, not for what other wants.
I completely agree with you. And take your time. Mathilde, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for your work in helping women feel closer to themselves and to nature.
Thank you so much, Kate. It was very an honor and a pleasure to chat with you again too.
To learn more about Skinswear, visit the website skinswear.paris or follow the brand on Instagram at Skinswear. That's SKINSWEAR_. You can find me, your host, Kate Kemp Griffin, on all socials at Paris Undressed and at Catherine Kemp Griffin. That's KATHRYN KEMPGRIFFIN. You can also find the links on our episode page. And thank you. Merci for listening to Paris Undressed. And if you enjoy this podcast, please share and subscribe so we can continue to connect our stories one bra at a time. Paris Undressed is produced by Paris Underground Radio. And for more on this show and shows like it, please go to parisundergroundradio.com. Merci et à la prochaine.
This episode of Paris Undressed was produced by Jennifer Garrity for Paris Underground Radio. For more on this show and shows like it, please visit parisundergroundradio.com.